Hello. This presentation is part of my assessment for the subject Applied Corporate Law. I am making this presentation to the board of Vista Pty Limited, a client of our firm. So let's get started. Welcome board members. I understand that there were some queries raised in our last board meeting. I have summarized the queries in these slides. Let's have a look at them one by one and understand the compliance provisions related to them. So the first query is related to the role and appointment of company secretary for the company. You would like to know whether appointment of company secretary is mandatory for Vista Pty Limited. The second query is in relation to formation of a subsidiary or another entity, and you would like to understand the different types of entities and wanted an overview of the incorporation process. The third query is for alteration of the constitution. The company wants to issue shares to its employees, which is really good. And you want to include a clause on the different classes of shares. So we'll understand that as well in detail. Welcome to the new directors, Sam and Rahul. I have included, as per your request, a small note on director duties and also a famous case study, James Hardy case. This is an important case law as it drives home the importance of corporate law and corporate governance and should be referred to by the corporations. So let's see at the first query, appointment of company secretary. So appointment of company secretary is only mandatory for public corporations and not for proprietary companies. However, if a company secretary is appointed, then that person must reside in Australia. Company secretarial's role has evolved a lot over the past years. In the earlier days, Lord Ishar had passed a comment that the company secretary is a mere servant. That no longer holds true. They are responsible office holders and they are really important for the corporate governance and corporate law regulation and can be held liable in case of any breach of duties. So Section 188 of the Corporations Act is very important to understand the role of company secretary. Their role involves establishing the registered office, opening it to the public, prepare and lodge the particulars with ASIC, any changes to the office holders or business with ASIC, among other things. So overall, the role of company secretary is very important, though it is not mandatory for you to appoint a company secretary. You have appointed us as your ASIC agents, but if the company in future becomes like a big company, then you may need to appoint a full-time company secretary on your records to for the compliance purposes as well as for record maintenance in proper form. With regard to your query about formation of a subsidiary or another company, so the different types of entities that are available are by way of liability in terms of shares, guarantee by shares and guarantee. Then there are unlimited or no liability companies. The company, I understand, wants to take up Bella Vista Pty Limited as the name for the new entity. We can reserve this name with ASIC using Form 410, and we have to pay a fee of $52 for that. Prior to the appointment for the new entity, the company directors would have to obtain director IDs. This is a new legislation, and after the meeting, I will circulate a note as to what is the process for applying the director ID. You will have to do it yourself, and what are the timelines to get this done. After we have all the documents in place. Registration is online, very straightforward, and it takes like it's just instantly. We get a certificate of registration in a PDF format, so we can save that. The draft paperwork would involve, like, I would like to know who would be the directors. We'll need the share application form, like decide on the share capital, register office, get the stationery printing, and then appoint us as your ASIC agents. Constitution alteration. Again, we need to have a members meeting and pass a special resolution. Special resolution means that 75% of the voting members of the company must vote in favor of the resolution. Once that is done, then we consider the resolution passed, and we can then launch that with the new constitution with ASIC. To issue multiple classes of shares, we can include that clause in the constitution. Further, as I mentioned, the company is a closely held company. Should include or may include preemptive share purchase rights that restrict the ability of the existing members to transfer their shares to outside. So this is very important in case of closely held companies where you don't want the shares to move around to outsiders, and this clause is not there in the constitution, which can be added to the constitution. About the query related to common seal, happy to inform that it is not mandatory. Prior to 1988, of course, common seals were mandatory. However, they are not mandatory anymore, and the company does not need it. As we can use DocuSign, e-signs, or electronic signatures for execution of documents, and they are also held valid. Duties of directors. All officers of a corporation are bound by a number of common law, equitable, and statutory duties. I have mentioned here statutory duties. They are like you have to act with reasonable care in the best interest of the company, should not make improper use of information for personal advantage or to the detriment of the corporation. You must act honestly and in good faith, and you are responsible for the actions of your delegate. Should disclose any interest in the company, should keep proper books and records, and avoid insolvent trading. So these are so mainly it's about acting in good faith, use your power for proper purpose, avoid conflict of interest, and use care and diligence. So these are I've mentioned the section numbers of the Corporation Acts for your reference, which if requested, I can then share things in detail. Now coming to the famous James Hardie case. So proceedings arose in 2001 when the restructure of the James Hardie group of companies happened. Two subsidiaries with significant asbestos-related liabilities were separated from the group, and a foundation was established to fund the compensation claims made against the separated companies by people injured by their asbestos products. The board of James Hardie approved a separation proposal, and they made an announcement outlining this proposal. However, the announcement contained misleading statements about the sufficiency of funds available to the foundation to meet the present and future claims. So, what are our learnings from this? We should take diligent interest in the information presented to us. So if you get any information from any director, outsider, stakeholder, you need to be very careful about what you're looking at. So you should not just rely on it. So, duty of care cannot be abdicted by delegation to board directors, management, or expert advice. So, always ask for more information where you don't have enough or the matter is complex. Seek more input and understand what the implications are for your decision. So, if you don't have enough information, don't vote on that matter. Thank you for your time, board members. In case of any further queries, please reach out.